I just don't know what to do right now. It's like, I have no ideas for countdowns at the moment. Well, I mean, the last list I did was top 7 homunculus sins, but the problem with that list was, it was on a topic barely anyone heard of. It really shouldn't be my problem, but it is, and that's just how the case is. I don't know, I guess maybe just do some countdown. I mean, I got a couple collab ones in the works. A new visitor? Oh, what is it? Like some sort of iris figurine or some shit?
Greetings, I am Tutoriolu.
Huh? Tutoriolu. Oh wow, what an original name. Guardian. Funny. Anyway, what do you want?
Well, based on the reception of your previous list, I figured, why don't you do a remake?
Yeah, I'm not talking about those 9 bosses again. Alright, I still stand by what I say for the most part. Plus, I'm not able to get footage for them at the moment.
Fair enough, but what about this? There was one boss you didn't talk about in your follow-up. Why don't you do one on the Bittercold then?
The Bittercold? I really don't want to talk about that game. Again.
How ironic, considering you've talked about Mega Man X5 how many times now in this channel? And if you're worried someone's going to do a video on you anyway, you said yourself, everyone has a right to their opinions. You have as much a right to speak as they do. So will this really do any damage? You have the right to talk about it as well. So discuss your thoughts on the Bittercold.
Oh man, but I want to do a friggin' Yu-Gi-Oh countdown. Can I just do that instead?
No. Besides, don't you suck at dueling that wick anyway? You're doing it.
Fine. I guess I'll have to put some countdowns on the back burner then. Alright, let's do it.
Well, Stone Samurai, you certainly sliced my vid to pieces. Video games, a form of stress relief. A media that can actually help its gamers improve certain abilities, such as reactions, or even learning. I'm not even joking about that last part. Dyslexics actually improve learning skills through video games. It's also home to controversies. 7 of them I discussed in a countdown already. Okay, screw the intro. You know why I'm making this list if you read the title. Video games also have crappy final bosses. In hindsight, I could have brought more than difficulty as a reason to hate the final bosses mentioned in that list, but I already discussed that in my follow-up video, so I will provide a link in the description for that. But the one entry that still pisses me off is the Bittercold from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Gates to Infinity. How bad is this final boss? Well, how about the fact that they should have been number 1 on my list instead of Ganon? So today I will address the top 5 reasons I hate the Bittercold. Don't take this too personally if you like this boss, because what I say is not fact. Lastly, there are spoilers here. So, without further delay, let's rock it! This may be nitpicking, but that's why it's this low on the list. This just bugs me. In the previous games, you and your partner teamed up to stop the big bad and save the world. It gave off the impression that certain friends stay friends till the end. But not this game. You're the only one that can stop this huge threat of icy proportions. And before anyone points out that your partner was pinned down, they couldn't fight, I want to remind you that the main character got hit by the same winds, and yet he was able to get back up. It may be debatable that this is Gary Stu material, but I believe that the main character was designed as a mask so that the player could immerse themselves into the game's world. At least that's what I believed with the last 2 games. You may argue, though, that, well, it would make the boss fight even easier considering how much health the Bittercold has, but I'll get back to that in a later entry, trust me on that. If you saw the entry back on the top 9 worst final bosses, you might notice that the song I used wasn't from the Bittercold. That was because the song was not that good. Before anyone asks, the reason I didn't bring this up in the list was because I mentioned in the opening I would not mention the music, so mentioning it in that list but not the others would get people to complain about it. So what's wrong with the song? Well, for one, it kills the atmosphere of this fight. When I played the first game, the music made me feel like we're at the top of the world and we need to defeat this dragon to save the world. Let's give it all we got. In the second game, it was more emotional because instead of a meteor to stop, you had to save time itself from collapsing. It made me feel like I'm fighting a guy with my bud to save time itself. Taste the power of our bond. But in this game, it felt like, yeah, taste my power, I guess. Like I said before, the previous games had more of an impact because you were fighting the boss with your partner, and that's why I also like the songs. Because hearing those songs made me think of all the fights me and my partner went through to get to this point. What doesn't help is that it doesn't fit the battle. This is a battle against the big bad of the game, and yet this song sounds like a rival battle, like the fight against Muna's gang. The tempo gives off this, "it's time to beat this guy for the last time" message, instead of, "it's time to save the world." When I heard this song, I thought to myself, nice one guys, where's the real final boss? Wait, this is it? Music may not be a major thing in certain video games, but this was one of the features that sapped the atmosphere away from this fight. Beauty is skin deep. So what does this being of negative emotion look like? Maybe he'll look like an evil version of the player, or maybe the devil himself, or maybe a snowflake with a cherry in the middle. Wait, what? You sure this is the final boss? What a killjoy. All that build-up just to find he's about as threatening as Olaf. Let me show you some examples. A man with insanity who wants to take over the world by absorbing all the magic. What does he look like in his final boss? A man becoming God. A man who wants to steal hearts of light and darkness so he can remake reality. And views himself on the same level of light and darkness being eternal. What does he look like? A man with the design of both light and darkness on his trench coat. What I'm getting at is that if you want to build up your villain as all-powerful, the design does play a part in the build-up when we finally see them. You want to know what happens when this is done wrong? You got King Sombra. But what about his powers? It's built up that he can destroy the world. So why does his only way of attacking involve confusing and lowering stats of his opponents? And in case you're wondering, yes, that is his only attack in the boss fight. But it's okay. I mean, it's normal for the destroyer of Pokemon to be less powerful than one who can destroy time. I am one who believes that certain games have main characters that act as masks, so that we, the gamer, can immerse ourselves into its world. I felt that way when I was playing the first and second game of Mystery Dungeon and Saving the World. I felt like I was that Pokemon that I chose, not some character that I was controlling. If it wasn't, then why would the game give me a personality quiz in the last two games? So I'm excited to do my personality quiz in this game. Of course. But back on topic. It pisses me off when games like this have forced loss battles. In Phase 1, you can attack the Bittercold all you want, but it won't matter. You have to lose in order to trigger the cutscene. Why does this piss me off? Because it takes away the feeling I am in this world making a difference. I don't feel like David the Turtwig stopping Goliath the Bittercold. Rather, I feel like Sasori controlling his lifeless puppets. Another reason I am against forced loss battles is because it doesn't make the boss fight challenging. It's just patience trying, as I'm forced to wait until the boss decides, "But now, here's your cutscene." Genius. When I did the entry, some people were asking, why did I bitch about the fact Bittercold doesn't refill his health, or that you respawn right near the boss? Well, here's why. I hate the difficulty Game Freak added to this. Instead of making the player redo the dungeon again and skip the Kyurem fight, you get to respawn next to the boss fight. Screw you, challenge! That's why I liked Primal Dialga and Rayquaza's fights. If you failed, you had to redo the dungeon again, and you didn't respawn near the boss room. But you'd have to refight Kyurem! Then why not build a shorter dungeon after the fight with Kyurem then? Look at the freaking dungeon with Primal Dialga. If you failed, you get to respawn near the checkpoint halfway through. As for the HP refill, what challenge exists with this boss fight when its health stays the same? I mean, like, I'm sure that the Xemnas fight would have been so much better if he didn't restore his health. I'm not asking for Final Fantasy levels of health, but considering this is the destroyer of the world, I expect some sort of challenge.
Oh dear.
This boss angers me because the build-up is shit, the design sucks, it treats me like a goddamn child with its challenge, when if I fail, I should have to redo the freaking stage again. It feels like the game is holding my hand throughout this boss dungeon and the boss fight. It ruins the interaction, and it ruins the game somewhat, because when I look back at this game, I'm constantly reminded of this weak, poorly designed, hand-holding trash. But you know what? It's not worth it anymore. The boss fight may piss me off, but it's not worth the rage anymore. I beat the game, I saved the world, and the rest of the game is fun. I don't hate this game. But this final boss, no. Just no. And this infuriates me more than Ganon. It may have been easier in the 3DS version, but you know what? It didn't hold my hand. The other bosses may have sucked, but it didn't hold my hand. It didn't treat me like a goddamn child. That's what angers me the most. The fact that this game treats me like a goddamn baby throughout all this. You don't want a challenge? Well, okay. Instead of making you actually have to work for your prize, we're going to give it to you anyway. That pisses me off. The other two games would have never gotten away with that. And it just bugs me so much. Because if there's one thing I hate, it's being treated like a goddamn child. And that's what puts it above Ganon. I'm the Mountie Chief, and despite my hatred for this game, Gates to Infinity is still a great game. Aside from that, take care.
I thought you would have exploded in anger. I mean, you had that Susanoo thing.
It's a bad boss, but it's not worth screaming at it.
Still, turning it off? I thought that would have been a joke or something.
A joke. You want a joke?
Yeah.
Here's your stupid joke.
Well, that was lame.
Piss off. Now if you excuse me, I have some shit to do.
魂込めた一人の男が今日も行く真面目に遊ばぬ奴らには体で覚えさせるぞ背がた三四郎背がた三四郎背がさ三四郎テニスやカラオケナンパにクラブ他にすることあるだろうが触れなきゃ遊べぬ奴らには心に